If the amount of leaks is any indicator to when we are getting the next major update in Deadlock, we may be getting it here pretty soon. Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Dead Unlocked, and it feels like the lid has just blown off of the kind of leak situation on the test server. We've got a ton to look at today, including finally a lot of in-game screenshots of heroes and new things that are coming to Deadlock in the next major update. Let's get right into it, starting off with a post from Minesweeper that really lays out a lot of information that we've gathered about some of these new heroes. All right, so because of the volume of leaks today, we're just going to kind of go piece by piece here, and so if you want to skip around to the video to see just one particular thing, feel free. But we'll start with this post from Minesweeper. Some info on the next heroes. They're going for a set of high skill gap characters that require deep knowledge in tech. Fencer is a hard frontliner, kind of surprising honestly, with great tanking, one of the highest skill ceilings in the game, similar play style to Billy and Warden, Minesweeper clarified below. Graves has a wall and AoE bomb, which must be placed strategically, similar to Paradox, along with the summoning stuff on the 2 and the 4 that we've already talked about. So that gives us a full image of Graves kit, which is very cool. So wall, AoE bomb, 4 or 3 little Graves you can place, and then 1 large ghoul that you summon to walk forward. Rems 1 was changed to a 7 type ball skill shot, which pretty much just behaves like Morgana Q. That makes sense. Pepper has Boho's skip shot and the rocket launcher reused from Earhart. And I have kind of heard that it feels like Earhart has been kind of scrapped or at least tabled for a while, and this would essentially verify that info. So, and then an image here, Shapeshifter is kind of strange. I think she's still not solidified, but at the moment she has a nice little combo in human form. You can dash into people with a kick, and if it collides, you will knock them back. Another ability is a bola that does like a root effect, sorta. You can still be knocked back, but pretty sure you're hexed and then slowed a bunch. And then the 1 will shoot off a full mag of your shotgun very quickly. So Shapeshifter is one we've talked about. I believe this here has gone under the name Silver, but it's going to have essentially a 2-form kind of system. We've talked about this a little bit on the channel already, where there'll be kind of like a She-Hulk werewolf form, like were-woman form, and then a more normal human form. So super interesting to be keeping an eye on that one. Nothing on Pepper here besides the Bola skill shot, or Boho's skill shot, skip shot rather. Man, cannot talk. But yeah. Let's get into our next set of leaks here. The super interesting stuff here from Minesweeper though. Super grateful for this, but let's move it right along. All right, before we get into the actual in-game screenshots, we have one more artist rendition of a character that we still aren't ready to kind of unveil the full model of yet. Hezi actually commissioned an artist, DXXMXRK, to made it basically an artist rendition of Graves and how Graves looks in game. So we've got that on screen. Graves is looking awesome, a little bit more intense than I kind of imagined, but I mean, this is a necromancer we're dealing with after all. She is going to be raising ghouls from the dead, so probably not the most cheery, happy person, as we can see here, but yeah, Graves looks awesome. Again, that red jacket is really going to be interesting to see lore-wise, what they do with Graves and Fencer and kind of what that creates in the Deadlock universe. Very excited for the game's lore in general, but again, when we see little pieces of more information, it just gets me even more excited about it. So, like I said, last non-in-game screenshot here I wanted to talk about quickly, just so you all can see. We know pretty much the whole kit for Graves so far. We covered a lot of that in the last video, obviously here as well. And now we have a really even more accurate example of what Graves could look like in-game. All right, I lied. This is actually the last thing we're going to talk about without an in-game screenshot. This is a really interesting. All the rest of the leaks we're going to talk about are from Sleep. Sleep just kind of went on a leak bender. I don't know what else to call it the last day. Just a ton of information has come out from this source. So this is the first one that I want to get into. Insane new leak. We are getting new camps. Tier 2s are garbage themed. Unironically had them described like Oscar the Grouch. Hezi kind of added some context to this though. This is just something in the files. Super hard to confirm, but I'd likely say it's real. So again, this is one of those moments where we really have to put the caveat of like a grain of salt here, because we don't have anything really on this outside of a claim from Sleep and how it's been described, and then Hezi kind of obviously backing it up to that degree. But this would make sense though. I mean, it fits in with the theming of the map. It kind of feels like those camps could easily have that aesthetic, and it's one of the things we have definitely identified needs a retouch in the game. And with them, doing an art kind of final pass over the map in this update, most likely, it would make sense that jungle objectives would be redone here. This is something I've talked about extensively on the channel, that is kind of one of those areas that I felt like had been neglected a little bit, and I was just really wondering when we would hear something. This could very easily be it, and like I said, it really would fit in with the rest of the map. Kind of that just kind of like grimy New York City style, right? So if we get a bunch of Oscar the Grouches in jungle, I don't think anyone would be upset. Imagine they're in little trash cans, and whenever you activate them, they pop out just like Oscar would. Oh, I mean, it would be amazing. So very stoked for this. Really interesting to see how much of a work in progress this really is, or if we actually get it in the December update. Will be super interesting to see. But let's finally get into a lot of in-game screenshots we have. Some maybe more work in progress than others, some pretty finalized. Let's take a look. All right, so I'm going to try here to go from more or most work in progress to most finalized. It may not be perfectly like this, but the first thing I want to show is this image of Boho. It looks like from in-game. Just to get a sense of how Valve works sometimes when we talk about hero being scrapped. Sometimes they really can get scrapped pretty far along the process, but this also illustrates the difference between a work in progress model and a finished model. So with Boho, it seems like Valve a lot of times likes to do this. They get like a pretty solidified concept of a hero. Even if they may not move forward with it 100%, they at least want to be able to get a visual to kind of like sit with and resonate with maybe. And it looks like that's what happened to Boho. If this hero really is completely scrapped, it would be a tragedy, but we get a pretty good, I mean, the art style and the model is pretty complete in terms of just like what at least my standard would be. Now we're going to compare it to some others that really kind of show how early along it is, but we got to see what could have been with Boho here at the very least. So, you know, again, I think when heroes are like this, when we talk about the old ones in the experimental branch and Boho, I don't think Valve are just getting rid of these. The term scrapped really is so harsh. I imagine they're just shelved is probably a better way to like think about this, or they're in hibernation or they're in storage or whatever. So in any case, this is what we get from Boho. Probably not coming out anytime soon, but a hero that could still nonetheless pop its head back up in Deadlock in the future. Next up is the three-headed Bullwalker. I have actually seen this image as well and can verify this, but this one does seem to be like probably the most work in progress. Even when I saw it, I was like, this looks very undone almost. And like, even though some of the ways the outlines appear, you kind of wonder like how legitimate this is. It looks legitimate, but you never know. So this is, again, according to Hezi even, this is super work in progress and outdated. It was never on live, just a console command, but it did exist. That's the claim there. So I don't know. I mean, we've talked about the three-headed walker quite a bit, the three-headed Bullwalker, and Minesweepers talked, a lot of people have talked about there being a Bullwalker coming. I still think that's probably the case. This was just probably one of the earliest renditions of what that could look like in the game on the test server, just to kind of toy around with and start experimenting with. I fully expect something more polished than this, but it is cool for us to finally get a chance to see just what Deadlock devs have been working with. That's so much of when we look at these images is just like getting a peek behind the curtain, getting some perspective on what's happening in the test server. So right now, this is, again, something I would say is super early work in progress, but you never know. This could be how the Bullwalkers look with some touching up and some kind of graphics updates. We could be seeing them in December. I would expect something coming, but at the end of the day, who knows? All right, and sticking with map objectives here, we actually get some in-game screenshots of what the new troopers could look like, and you all kind of see why I used the term Washington Monument to describe one of them. He absolutely just looks like a little Washington Monument. You've got the classic Candle Troopers sticking around, maybe a little bit different looking, but I do really love how the Candle Troopers look. It's just a really funny way to like create a minion basically with a burning candle. Very cool looking. You got some other chess pieces very clearly there. I do love how just structural the other minions look. They really do just look like little chess pieces or little buildings, like stone formed buildings. Just a neat little aesthetic thing to me. And then you see one of the healing troopers there as well. So it'll be interesting to see how these look in game. These are probably, it's a very similar caveat as the Bullwalker image we just showed. These could be heavily work in progress. These could be pretty finalized. It's always hard to tell, but at the very least, we are seeing how they look in game, at least at some point, and that is pretty cool. So very excited for the new minions and the new troopers coming in. All we had seen prior to this was like a MS Paint rendition that Sleep had made. I'd actually seen these images previous, so I knew what the reference point was, but in any case, let's shift away from map objective and start looking at what we've seen from some new heroes, in particular actual in-game screenshots of some of the new heroes coming to Deadlock. All right, I took the hat off because we got my twin on screen, we've got Fencer, and we get our first in-game look at how this Ixion asshole is going to look in-game, and he looks pretty sick. This fits with a lot of the leaks. A lot of the leaks I feel like have been pretty accurate with Fencer in terms of getting the art style pretty close, and this is not that difficult of a hero to, I guess, create a rendition of, maybe. This is my take at least, but in any case, we get our first look at him. My thoughts here are he's obviously got the fencing uniform on, that kind of explains the aesthetic, but the jacket over the fencing uniform, there's just something about it. I can't tell if it's drippy or if it's just like really cringe of Fencer to wear this jacket like this. Maybe it's a part of the uniform, I don't know, but in any case, we get our first look at him. He's got the tail, he's got the fencing sword, he's got his red skin, he's got his horns, red jacket, gray and red outfit. Super cool character overall, great to see it in game, finally in Deadlock. All right, and then last thing for this batch of leaks is Venator. We have a really cool, thanks Sleep for posting this. This is a really cool side-by-side where we get to see a very early work in progress version of Venator, and then kind of our super finalized, very polished, more recent looking version. And you can really see the differences here. I mean, just in the amount of detail on his, kind of on his clothing and in what he's wearing. I mean, even just like the wooden stakes are so much more detailed as models, right? So I really see Venator as being, I mentioned in a past video, like as far along or maybe even more detailed than some of the heroes in the game currently. I'll leave that for you all to make the judgment call now that you've seen this as well. But yeah, in any case, Venator looking really sick. I think this is going to be such a cool hero, and this absolutely looks like the most far along hero that we've seen so far. And usually leaks are at least somewhat indicators of kind of like progress reports for devs to a degree. I mean, they could always overhaul his kit and change the way he looks, you know, Valve, like that could happen. But it seems to me, at least, with all the abilities, we probably have a pretty good baseline for about 5 or 6 heroes so far, and we're getting more and more polish applied to each one, you know, along the way. And this really gets into some of my thoughts about when are we going to get this update. I want to get right into that. So it feels like we have a basically finished Venator. We have Fencer, who I think could probably use some more polish. I don't know how old that image is though. And then several other heroes that we've seen at least traces of, but probably have some more polishing to go through as well. Even the Rem model we saw, I bet has a little bit of like touching up to do. And so based on that, I still think we have a couple weeks before this update drops. Part of that could just be hopium, because I'm going on vacation in 2 days and I'm going to be gone until the 12th. So maybe it's just me trying to genuinely manifest that. But I think actually when we look at these, unless these are just very outdated images, which I don't think are necessarily the case, I think this update still has a couple more weeks to go. We probably get like a December 14th or 15th update, maybe a couple days of tweaks, and then a long vacation that Valve will go on where we kind of get our time to play with the new heroes, all that kind of stuff. That's just my theory, but in any case, like I said, it's great to finally see some in-game images of some of this stuff. What it allows it, you know, to happen is for you all as the viewers, you all can finally make your own assessments of this information versus me trying to kind of parse out what I've seen secretively and then communicate that in a way that's not giving away anything, but also is giving you guys information. So it's much easier to talk about leaks when we can just show what's on screen and show what I'm being shown. So appreciate this. Very excited to get into this more and more. But as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope the leaks keep coming, but we'll see. We'll see you all next time either way here at Dead Unlocked.